Hi there, folks. My name's Christian Barker, and this is Banter with Barker. And today I am delighted to say that it's actually Banter with Brandy. I will be speaking very, very soon with a young lady named Brandy Dallas, who has just founded, late last year, founded a new sustainability-focused women's wear label called Sans Faff, and they've just joined in the conversation and will be joining us live momentarily. Just connecting with Brandy right now. There she is.
Hey
Hello.
there, how's it going?
I'm very good, Brandy Dallas. How are you?
I'm great. Just, motoring through the week and getting ready for our next collection to drop soon, so we're really excited.
Amazing. That's great. Well, I'm fresh back from a weekend of staycations. My summer vacations comprised a whole four nights away at a couple of nice hotels in Singapore. We can't travel very far at the moment, can we?
Well, I think a staycation is as good as it's gonna get right now, and I feel like I saw a few sneak peeks of where you were at, and it looked pretty okay.
It wasn't bad. I think we're kind of blessed living in a tropical paradise. There are worse places to be stuck than Singapore. But to give a little bit of an introduction on you, obviously, like myself, Brandy is an expatriate living in Singapore, and Brandy is from the United States. How long is it? Canada. Oh my God! Sorry, I can't believe I did that. That's
it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. I'm a big fan of it. Well, I was gonna say I'm a big fan of America, but I don't know these days. But we're happy to be neighbors.
I would have been technically correct if I'd said you were from America. There's a big sort of continent that's that would have been technically right. I'm terribly sorry, but I am correct in saying that that Brandy. You and I first met when you were working for a small jewelry company called Tiffany Co, handling a lot of their marketing and things, wasn't it? You were in the marketing side of things.
Yeah, we're managing the marketing for Singapore and helping to drive the business for the country and doing a lot of cool campaigns and events and some really cool PR initiatives. It kind of was a bit of a dream job for sure.
Yeah. And then last year made the decision to launch your own fashion label, Sans Faff, which is, and as you know, in our previous conversations, I'm very, you could say I'm obsessed by the sustainability side of fashion and buying less but better, and the fact that we need to reduce the amount of stuff that we consume, and then we need to try to focus on consuming more sustainable and more responsibly produced fashion, which are key touchstones for you. So perhaps explain a little bit about the philosophy behind Sans Faff and why you decided to launch your own label and what its raison d'etre is.
So I launched the label very recently, February this year, on the heels of a pandemic, which was awesome timing.
Yep.
But we are a minimalist women's wear label that is ethically made here in Singapore, and we focus on quality pared back wardrobe essentials that can be worn time and time again. We really like to be able to provide the foundation to a woman's wardrobe. We're sort of trans season and really would like to be the go-to comfortable, everyday basic that kind of creates that foundation to your wardrobe. And I think that for me, I like to get a lot out of my clothes. And so I've really designed the collection based on things that are not based on trends, because I think that we're all kind of getting tired of being bombarded by these temporary trends that ultimately line landfills at the end of the day, and are made out of these synthetic fibers that don't necessarily breathe well, or last very long. And so for me, I think we're seeing a shift more and more of people wanting to look towards sustainable clothing options, which I think is really inspiring, and it's a great time to be in the industry. And really looking towards building their wardrobe in a more mindful way. And so I think that that's kind of the ethos of where we're operating right now. And also for us too, I kind of created the brand being really struggling myself to find sustainable wardrobe options that didn't play into the whole green aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
For me, you know, as a young professional previously with Tiffany, I couldn't wear a lot of florals and, you know, hemp fabrics, and nor did I want to. And really struggled to find something that works. And so wanted to be able to provide an option in the market that really appealed to different audiences that may not be drawn necessarily to an environmental aesthetic or a green aesthetic. Yeah.
But who have a desire to be a little bit more responsible in
exactly,
the way
and step up for the planet, and not necessarily you know, contribute to the mass amount of waste that the fashion industry unfortunately does every year. It's funny you should say that. I don't think it is, you know, it shouldn't be just a kind of hippy dippy kind of desire anymore. It's something that we all need to be very conscious of, what we consume and what we put into or onto our bodies, right? Absolutely, for sure. And I do, like I said, I'm really inspired because there's a lot of people that are definitely interested in wanting to learn more and constantly educate themselves. And it may not have been something that they grew up with. I'm from the west coast of Canada, and so there's definitely a lot of education out there in and around sustainability. But for those friends of mine who may not have grown up sort of in that whole world, they're starting to ask me questions and starting to want to know a little bit more. And I think that's really exciting, and it really shows how people are just becoming more purposeful with how they buy and where they put their money.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, most of your garments are made out of bamboo fiber, which has been, you know, a real favorite of mine. I've got everything from sort of pocket squares and t-shirt. The pocket square just sort of sits beautifully in your pocket, but you know, t-shirts and socks and all sorts of things in bamboo fibers that I think I discovered, probably sort of bought my first couple of things made of bamboo around about a decade ago. What was it that you know, drew you towards producing things using bamboo, and perhaps you know, what are some of the unique qualities or attributes? I guess both from a, you know, to me it's not only sustainable and you know, has those bona fides, but it feels great, and you know, it wears well and things, so it sort of ticks all of the boxes.
It does. Bamboo is something that I became really passionate about in the process of starting the label, as I was learning about sort of natural fibers. And for me, that's something that's really important, that whatever it is that you're producing can biodegrade back into the planet. You know, plastic can take anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years, and a lot of synthetic fibers that we actually wear in our clothes, it's the same story. Bamboo, on the other hand, it's a natural fiber, and it's quite cool because it grows like weeds, and it's almost considered a renewable resource. It really is a renewable resource because it grows a meter a day with natural rainwater as well, which is super cool. Like if we look at cotton, for example, cotton takes thousands of liters of irrigated water to grow, along with pesticides to keep it going and in order to harvest that. Whereas bamboo, on the other hand, it grows with natural rainwater, and because of its antibacterial properties, it actually doesn't require any pesticides. So
Mm.
it's got this amazing natural story that in competition with like other natural fibers, it's actually one of the best ones out there. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, you've got the ridiculous like soft. For me, I'm obsessed with the texture because it's
Yeah.
it's buttery and it's smooth, and it breathes really nicely, especially for I think our climates here. It definitely is something that you can wear as a t-shirt or a dress or something like that and still be very comfortable. But yeah, I fell in love with bamboo, and I'm very curious to see, because there's all sorts of exciting new blends that are happening as well with like different natural fibers that are very new, and there's a lot of new stuff in the industry that's popping up, and so we're staying at the forefront of that and definitely keeping it in mind for our next collections.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm just waiting for you to make some men's stuff. I'll have to continue looking elsewhere for the moment. But look, you know, you launched, as you say, in February 2020, and it was really sort of March 2020 that. And I think, you know, you came over and you and I had a coffee and a chat around about February before the plague came and locusts and apocalypse and all zombie
rained on all of our parades.
yeah, before everything sort of became doom and gloom. But it strikes me that you know what you're doing with Sans Faff, you know, kind of dovetails, plays into the new the requirements of the new normal, where you know so many of us are working from home, and you know I can speak for myself as a male, where you know obviously my needs are slightly different, but I've said over and over, most days I put on a white shirt with a, you know, button up white shirt, that whether I'm doing a Zoom interview or you know, a conference with someone, or you know, one of these interviews, you know, that and a sort of a blue jacket or a blazer or whatever, and I look very proper and businesslike and professional and all of that sort of thing, but still very, very comfortable. And I would imagine that what you're producing, and you know, you're modeling it right now, is I guess you're modeling it right now, is you know the equivalent for a woman, where you can be around your home, and people working from home, you know, rightly so, want to be as comfortable as they can be, and want to be, you know, not to be too stiffly attired, given that they're at home all day. But you need something that looks
slightly
you know,
elevated and still professional, I think. And yeah, exactly. I think for us, it really is the focus of the collection, and it's also kind of a blank palette that you're able to style up or down however you want to. So for instance, a lot of the time, like if I want to really up the ante in terms of my like Zoom calls, I can put a blazer on top, or accessorize whatever, and a simple black t-shirt dress, which is what I'm wearing now, suddenly becomes an entire outfit. I'm still at home, I'm still comfortable, and maybe after the Zoom call I might take off a few layers. But I'm still appropriately dressed to also pop out if I need to go and run some errands or do whatever. It doesn't require an entire wardrobe change from working from home or stepping out as well. And for me, that's, I think we've been a little bit lucky, given what's obviously with the pandemic and everything. If we had launched with bathing suits, it might be a little bit, or resort wear, it might be a little bit more tricky. But because we have stayed in this basics range, I think for us, we've seen sales have been quite steady since our launch. There's been a little bit, I'd say, I think we've kind of plateaued a little bit recently because we haven't been able to introduce anything new. We've had to redo our whole supply chain because our local factory here was affected, having to close for a few months. A lot of our seamstresses are from Malaysia and overseas. So those guys actually, they went home. So for us, we haven't been able to keep up with the drops that we had hoped to be able to do throughout the year to keep that freshness and newness and something to talk about. But we're just in the process of doing our sampling for the next collection now. And we're hoping to have something new in the next about a month and a half. And then also staying within the same, we're monochromatic, comfortable, like well cut, things that you can work from home in no problem, or step out if you're going to dinner or whatever sort, or grocery shopping.
No, I think you've been I don't want to, I hesitate to say fortunate, because I don't think anyone in any business, unless they're Jeff Bezos, is really fortunate at the moment. But no, your approach does seem to have, as you say, it's not something that's, it's not like you went out and opened a new cafe, which would have been probably not such a good idea. But look, going back to what you were saying about ensuring novelty and things, which is, central to what fashion is, or one might say has been about. I think people are now perhaps more looking for, those perennials that they can rely on. And I know it was one of your sort of inspirations for founding the label, was that you did have a bunch of these, t-shirt dresses, but you couldn't necessarily find a new one to buy when you'd worn out all of the old ones that you had. So is that the goal, to create these new perennials, which your customer will kind of keep going back to you and have, buy a new iteration once the previous one is worn out?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the foundation to the label. There's a few items that will live on for the collection. We've got our basics, our t-shirts, the t-shirt dresses. There's a few of our bestseller dresses that will keep going and replenish, because we know that they do work. And as we sort of begin to build into different markets, I think those ones will perform well there as too. But I think it's also creating iterations, because, for instance, we launched, say, our t-shirt dress with a crew neck, and women, through our research, are either crew neck or v-neck people. You're either one or the other, which is, so for us, we don't want to alienate ourselves just by doing crew neck. So the next drop will definitely do a variation and include different v-necks for different looks that we know are performing well. And I think I have a backup or sort of a collection that we've got about 30 dresses that I've already designed that I'm excited to continue to drop, and we'll base it based on the success of the business and our cash flow. But they're all staples and things that are comfortable, and things that will work for the situation now. And eventually, if you can hit the beach or if you can travel, it will work in those environments too. So those ethos to our brand will always be there for sure, along with the monochromatic. But I think that keeping the foundation in we'll always have certain go-tos, like our t-shirts, and we'll just build those out eventually as we see what works and what doesn't. What's cool is that our production is very small. It's something that we maintain for making sure that we don't have any waste or extra stock or dead stock, and which allows us to pivot quite quickly too. So if something's not necessarily working for us, we'll phase that out and pivot and focus on the things that are working, and make little sort of tweaks to those, and introduce new changes and updates.
You're getting some great endorsements here in the comments.
Thanks, Medina.
Lots of viewers piping up, and wow, Georgina,
I see Georgina.
She knows her textiles, that lady. So yes, that's definitely praise from Caesar. You just mentioned that you're keeping production quite small. Is that coming more from a cautious and modest entrepreneurial approach of wanting to kind of slowly build up momentum rather than going out there and having a whole warehouse full of stock, which would have probably not been the greatest idea at this disastrous moment in time? Or is it more coming from that sustainability approach of as you say, not ending up with not ending up with a vast amount of stock that perhaps needs to be flogged off at 50% off or 70% off on sale down the track, or end up in landfills?
Yeah, I mean, for us, minimizing waste, because as we know, like the fashion industry is probably one of the greatest culprits of waste out of any industry in the world, in terms of carbon footprint and just lining landfills. So for us, we don't want to be a part of that as much as we can. We've got initiatives in terms of zero plastic and giving back to the environment and all of that, but actually minimizing and having full control of our production and keeping it really small. It is our commitment to sustainability, and that is something that it's not necessarily just like, okay, this is easier for cash flow being an entrepreneur and a small label, because for us doing small, like we could produce probably the same amount that we do per piece because we're paying more making it locally. We could probably get about 300 pieces for the 65 that we produce locally, like with those economies of scale. But there's so much risk in that, and having excess stock, and then knowing that if something, I mean, we're new, so there's certain things that work and certain things that don't. And when it comes down to it, like, what do you do with, you can try and repurpose it. You can try, like doing the sales and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, I think in terms of our commitments to sustainability, it's having control and doing those small batches. It really is important at the end of the day. And so I would rather take a cut in terms of our numbers and our sales and our bottom line to make sure that we're not participating in adding more waste to the world. Yeah.
Are customers saying that they're happy about, to pay a couple extra bucks for something where they can be confident in where it's being produced? I'll go back to this, but I think Made in Singapore has a real future in it. The Made in Singapore label, primarily due to the fact that that we know that people in Singapore, the workplace has got a particularly high standard compared to the countries that surround us here, or many of the countries in Asia and elsewhere in the world where clothing is produced. That if something is made in Singapore, the people are working in pretty good conditions and getting a fair day's pay.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really inspired by Singapore's thirst for sustainable brands. I think I was also I was really pleasantly surprised because there is an audience here in Singapore that really searches specifically for brands who are in line with their values, whether it's ethically made and that's something that's really important to them, or the traceability, or their carbon footprint. People are more and more driven by this, and I really wasn't aware of the community of consumers here that really seek these brands, and they are incredibly supportive, and I'm so grateful for them, because I think that especially with COVID and everything going on, they have been our bread and butter for the last few months, because we've gotten some great positive feedback. It's through the challenging times when we were dealing with sort of issues with our supply chain. I think that there was some really lovely emails that came through from people that I've never met that were just interested in our commitments and all that sort of stuff. And so I think people are willing to pay a little bit more if they know that they're making a difference and that they're supporting something positive. And it's great. It's really actually inspiring. And I think that Singapore is a great little hotbed of like new upcoming brands. I've been seeing some new guys in the space recently popping up, and it's good. It's great.
That's great. No, it's which are the markets that you're concentrating on to begin with? Obviously, you know, it helps to be. So I would imagine Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, within the region, or are you immediately looking beyond to kind of reach out to the world?
Yeah, so for us, our first priority was to spend about 6 to 8 months really focusing on refining the collection and seeing sort of how it resonated here in Singapore. I think now we're definitely in the space of looking towards Australia and Canada. I think that in terms of our materials and our price points, Australia is a really great sort of next point for us to focus on.
Yeah.
And their thirst for sort of brands that I think are in line with our look and feel seems to be there. So I'm excited to start building the brand there. It's obviously a little bit challenging not being able to physically get there and you know be boots on the ground, building those relationships with potential stockists and stuff. So we're kind of just trying to see how we can enter that market from Singapore.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I got to tell you, my birthday was a couple of months ago, and I just got the card from my aunt in the post from Australia, which she'd sent a couple of weeks before my birthday. So it's taking a while for the post to work. Maybe I don't know, maybe DHL and things are a little bit better, but no planes are flying around, you know, because and it's really interrupting freight. So we're sort of.
I have a few packages that are taking a lifetime to get to where they're supposed to be going right now, and it's really frustrating as a business owner who wants to obviously make sure that the customer's relationship and experience with the brand is seamless and enjoyable and you get your product right away. Being at the mercy of the post right now is a bit challenging.
Exactly. Well, and on that topic, I think your packaging and your hang tags and things, those are also sustainably produced, are they not?
Yeah, so we've worked with all local printers and paper suppliers here in Singapore to source FSC certified paper, as well as, and it's recyclable. Some of the paper that we use actually comes from recycled t-shirts, which is really cool. They're able to sort of break down the pulp and then transform it into paper, which is like super cool. I love that. And we have zero plastic in our entire supply chain here in Singapore. So all of our mailer bags are biodegradable. They're made out of like vegan soy. You can put it into the ground and within 30 days it biodegrades and dissolves back into the earth. And even like our hang tags as well, same story. So for us, we really are aware and trying to make sure that we cover all of our bases to really ensure that our footprint is minimized as much as we can.
One of the viewers, a gentleman, was commenting a little earlier that are you planning on making men's garments? He was saying t-shirts and boxer shorts, which I put me down as well. Is that a plan, or I mean, you're very new, so baby steps, I suppose, to begin with. But is that something on the horizon?
Yeah, I think I would love to do men's t-shirts. I think that would be a really easy next step for us. My husband actually, he's got these beautiful, I think they're like Marks and Spencer's, David Gandhi, modal t-shirts that feel very similar to our bamboo. And so for me, I'm like, I can imagine replacing all of those with Sans
Yeah.
Faff. And I know that these t-shirts also have like a cult following of people that like exclusively buy these ridiculously soft men's t-shirts. And I think we could do it better. So
I see. Marks
it's
and
something
Spencer's,
that
you
I would,
say?
yeah.
Interesting. Ah, okay. There we are. Thanks for the tip. Anyway, it's good to share the love around. I'm sure M&S are suffering during this time as well. Everyone kind of is. How have you faced the challenges of getting through this tricky period? I mean, you know, the absolute black swan event that we've been hit by. You know, what would you say are the major challenges that you faced in establishing the business in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis? And you know, are there any interesting you know, ways that you've overcome those challenges that you might be able to share?
For me, I think not being able to do events and really engage with customers and build those relationships with people has been something that has been a challenge, because after my experience working in the industry, I know how successful that is in terms of building those relationships and making, I think, just sort of creating those amazing experiences and brand loyalty overall. So not being able to do that has been challenging. But on the flip side, what we have been doing for a lot of customers is, because we're new, people might not know their sizing and may not know, okay, like our fit and our cuts. So for anyone who reaches out to us, whether it be on Instagram or via email, asking about our sizing or wanting to know a little bit more about our fit and cut and everything like that, we actually offer a full service complimentary delivery of items, and with no upfront payment. You can try it on. It's kind of like a wardrobe at home. And this way, you know, we'll send you a couple pieces in a few different sizes, and from there you can choose what it is that you like. And then we'll send a courier service to your place to pick up whatever you don't want, and then you can complete your order online after. And this has been something that I think has really helped with people, you know, new buyers who may not, you know or be familiar with us. And in that process, being able to chat with our customers and just see, you know, get their feedback on the look and feel and what they're looking for has been really great information for us as we continue to like build out the collections. So, you know, we're getting creative, and there's different ways that we're trying to reach people. And so I think that's sort of been a way that we've had to step up to sort of bridge that gap. The other major issue for us is, of course, with our factory locally being closed for so long. We've had to kind of reevaluate how we're going to move forward. And a part of that is diversifying the supply chain, looking at different regions. We are very committed to making our clothes here in Singapore. But I think given the situation that we've been put in, we need to look at alternatives. So bamboo's actually, China is one of the largest exporters of bamboo and growers of bamboo in the world. So for us, it makes sense to check to see what manufacturing and doing our production out of China would look like. It would help us to minimize our carbon footprint and just have everything centralized. So over the last few months, we've been looking and working with different fabric suppliers to match what we what we currently have in our collection, because I think that's what's the basis of the brand. And also, like, this has kind of given us an interesting new look into what it is that we're doing in terms of our fabric and our certifications as well. And so by kind of having this reboot and looking to some of these larger bamboo fabric suppliers in China, we've been able to get some of the new like sustainability certs that we didn't have working locally here.
Brilliant.
So there's some pluses and minuses, and we're trying to make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and despite being a big, as I was saying earlier, a big proponent of made in Singapore, um, I always say that people shouldn't be snobbish about something being made in a particular place. Something can be very poorly made in Italy or France or the United Kingdom, and something can be very beautifully made in Thailand or Indonesia or China. It's all a matter of who's doing the making and the pride that they take in their work and what their standards are. So yeah, why not? Why not go to where it's most effective?
Yeah, and I think that like for us, as long as we can make sure that our commitment to ethically made is upheld,
Yeah.
and that we know that the working conditions are safe for everyone involved and that people are being paid fair wages. For us, that those commitments still stand true, and I do believe we can still achieve that if we are in the place of having to look at different regions for our production. And also, we're all just, the industry has been shook up in such a big way, and there's been a lot of supply chain disruption all across the board. Europe as well, when they were in lockdown, there's a lot of collections that are delayed. So it's a journey, and we're just really open to rolling with it at this point.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Someone was commenting earlier, or asking a little bit earlier. No, I believe you mentioned to me that you had some sort of mentorship from TAF.
Yeah.
I think it was, which is, remind me, that acronym stands for
TBFI.
Okay, and
So the Fashion Incubator program, which
Yep.
is spearheaded by TAF, was an amazing program that I actually just finished about maybe 3 weeks ago now.
Okay.
It was epic timing because the program is ultimately a mentorship program that really helps. It's an incubator to refine and polish your business and get it up and running as efficiently as possible. Lots of different types of industry people participate, fashion, tech, and really cool startups. And it worked out to be great timing because we kicked off and started literally the first day of lockdown.
Okay.
And
Yep.
the program, TAF had to pivot like nobody's business because they took a whole offline, like sort of classroom learning and put it onto Zoom, I think within a week or something like that. And they did it amazingly, I have to say.
Okay.
And
Wow.
the program was incredible for us because as soon as we got put in the position of having to reevaluate our supply chain, I was luckily in this program, and they brought in all sorts of amazing sustainability experts from the region who helped to introduce me to who we're working with now in China, who's making sure that all of our commitments are definitely met and even helping us to improve them, which is cool, and opening our minds to all the different sort of certifications that I mentioned with regards to the fabric. So that worked out great. It also provided a lot of structure to lockdown, which I think things could have gotten pretty hairy pretty quickly in terms of accountability and like being able to stay focused. And we had quite a lot of deliverables for the program, which was really good. So it really kept me on task. And yeah, it was really cool and great timing. I can't express that more because I think that it could have been going into lockdown very overwhelmed and lost, but instead it was actually quite structured and with an amazing panel of mentors to help sort of get us to the position that we're at now.
Okay. If anyone's interested in looking into that for themselves, where will they find information on that online?
If you go to the TAF website, there should be a section called the TBFI Incubator. And if anyone wants to, drop me a message on the Sans Faff Instagram or on my personal Instagram, I'd be happy to connect you with the people there.
Okay, super. No, it sounds great. And yeah, I think it's wonderful that the Singapore government and other authorities and organizations have been helping people make the most of their time off, or pivot to doing something else during this situation. It's yeah,
They have
it's
their next
vital.
cohort as well that just launched. I believe it's
Okay.
every 3 months you can apply,
Oh, wow.
and I think that the application's kind of like Dragon's Den. You gotta do your business pitch and see if they think it's a viable business and if they can help to take you to the next level. And so
Okay.
the
Very good.
applications for the next round must be opening soon. That's
Very,
my
very
plug.
good. Okay, well, they obviously had some confidence in what you're doing, which is great to hear. Always nice to have some backing.
Yeah.
I want to change the topic altogether, but it kind of ties in with that, in the fact that so many of us are living our lives now through the camera on our iPhone or on our laptop, and doing so much of our, whether it's conferencing or whether it's learning, whether it's work meetings and so forth in this format. And I'm just looking at the sort of the setup that you've got going there, and it looks great. Your little sort of mise en place, your Zoom setup, and I think something that, 'cause I've been asking a lot of the tailors or the menswear designers, etc., that I've been speaking with, what their advice is for I guess presenting yourself in this new format that we all have. What would be your advice? I mean, I guess both from, you've got this cool background where you've got your mood board and you've got the bookshelf, and I think the palette is quite nice. And then you're obviously not a V-neck girl, you're a crew neck girl, and I've got it going up here. And it's something that a couple of the menswear guys have said to me is, really, I don't do it because I love my sort of Tom Ford kind of, yes, hairy chested vibe. But, they were all saying dress the neck, have, and whether that means wearing a tie or a cravat or a sort of neckerchief or something, or a high-necked crew neck T-shirt, which kind of frames the face. That they recommend that as being sort of very important. I don't know. What's your advice in that regard?
I think it's all about your audience and dressing for the audience. But I think something that would be consistent across, no matter what meeting you're having, is having natural, epic lighting. I think it all comes down to the lighting. And also just keeping it simple, over accessorizing, kind of arriving onto Zoom like you're headed out to an extraordinary cocktail. I mean, unless you're having an extraordinary cocktail on Zoom, which is
every night, of course,
awesome,
every day,
super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, even as I was getting ready to chat with you, I was playing with some of like my chunkier, fun jewelry, and sitting down, it was like, I don't know if this is working for this type of Zoom. So for me, my go-to is to keep it as simple and sharp as possible. And you can add a nice like jacket over your shoulders or a scarf if you want to create some like color contrast. But ultimately, for me, the number one thing always comes down to lighting.
Okay, interesting.
Otherwise, if you're doing a Zoom or a conversation with someone, and it looks like you're kind of in a really shady FBI low light interrogation room, I feel like that just never is a look that anyone can pull off, regardless of what it is that you're wearing.
No, it's not good. And what you say, it helps explain why I try to do these things between sort of 5 and 7 p.m. because then I get myself in the magic hour light coming from this little window to my side, which definitely helps. Whereas if I'm doing it in the middle of the night, it's not not so good. But
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because like every so often I'll see someone who's and I've got it too, the special like light ring, which is great. But there's a few different modes on that ring. And if you're on like tanning bed mode,
yeah. You
can be completely whitewashed and have like the little rings in your eyes, which I always find quite comedic when watching a few of those interviews online with someone who's experiencing the light for the first time.
Well, maybe that's what they want, the completely washed out look. I don't know. But I think, it's something for women. You're really lucky in that you can wear a garment like you're wearing now, which is a t-shirt dress, which, you could throw on some diamonds or a pearl necklace or something with that and go to a cocktail party in a pair of high-heeled shoes. And it's really all about accessories, or as you say, you could throw on your Stan Smiths and schlep down to the shop and pick yourself up a bottle of Chardonnay for the evening. Either way, which I don't know. I don't think guys have it that lucky, apart from maybe the sort of white shirt, jeans, and blazer sort of thing, which is adaptable.
Yeah, I mean, you can do anything with a blazer, though. That's the glory of I feel like with menswear, that if you're having a slightly more casual Zoom conversation, you can do your t-shirt and board shorts because no one really sees anything from there down anyways.
That's me. It's always shorts for the. I'm like Ron Burgundy, business up top, party down below.
Exactly. And so, or if you need to like step it up a notch, you can add a blazer and be that like casual guy wearing the blazer, but still looking really sharp. I feel like unless you are literally, delivering quarterly results, having a necktie and, a buttoned up shirt might appear a little bit formal. So I'm of the belief that the sort of a few buttons down is kind of always the way to go, because I think it just relaxes the situation. But again, I mean, it's all about your audience and understanding like what kind of room or virtual room you're walking into.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Georgina is still tuned in, and she'll be very glad to hear that my Xenia is pretty much my go-to for these things, and is sort of, people are talking about the Zoom shirt. I've got the Zoom Xenia, the
nice.
Zoom EZ, which is probably worn 75% of the time I'm doing these things. So yes, the strong arm.
I love it.
Yeah, well
We're big
done.
Xenia friends of the house here as well. My partner is a big fan, and also their sustainability commitments I think are unprecedented in the menswear industry. So I think that I also have a lot to learn from Georgina and Xenia too. They're doing some really wicked stuff.
Indeed they are. I'm just going to throw out, as we're reaching, Instagram cuts you off after exactly 60 minutes. So we've got about 12. We've got 12 of those left. So if anyone has any more questions for Brandy, please throw those into the comments, and we'll attend to that. I am curious to ask, what prompted you to leave working for having a very stable job with a huge international luxury leviathan like Tiffany Co, which is something that I'm sure lots of people dream of having, and to make the decision to instead cast off on your own and take the entrepreneurial route. What sparked that desire?
For me, working with Tiffany it really was a dream job. It was incredible, and being able to build the campaigns and achieve what we did together for the market was really, I think, one of the peaks of my career for sure, and highlights. and I learned a lot in terms of, you know, taking an accountability and the traceability of your product actually from Tiffany. That kind of
Okay.
created the foundation for me in terms of our story, because if you followed Tiffany's journey of a diamond, for example, like they have full control of their supply chain. They may not own the mines per se, but they have full control of the supply chain and full accountability. And so when one of the last initiatives that we did before I left was the Journey of a Diamond campaign, and really understanding the provenance of each diamond and adding that as one of the sort of the key factors of Tiffany diamonds. And so when you walk into the stores now, you can actually see exactly where your diamond comes from, and that's something that had yet to be done by any other luxury jeweler in the world. So they really stepped up and did such an amazing initiative. And I think that for me, I saw, you know, the way that it uplifted an entire industry globally and changed the standards. And I was really inspired. And for me, it happened at around the same time. I was actually in Bali surfing, and I was in Canggu and jumped on my board and was, you know, just like paddling out, normal situation. And with one gush of a wave, I was completely surrounded in garbage.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I had, you know, like, and I went to like paddle, and I had this huge black garbage bag stuck on my leg. I jumped off my board, and I felt all the garbage wading through my legs through like the water. And it made me just rethink and look at, okay, like we've got a serious plastic issue for sure, hands down. We all know that. But and for me to look at also the materials that I had in my wardrobe from there, because there was like, you know, there was garments in the water, and I was like, okay, like how is this happening? How are these things not breaking down? And so after that trip, you know, it was very jarring, and it was really, you know, it was heartbreaking to see one of the most beautiful places in the world, you know, look like that. And we've all been confronted with those images for a long time. But for me, it was like, okay, what can I do on my own? What sort of business can I do that takes accountability for this and, you know, is a part of the change in a small way? And yeah, so when I came home, I started looking through my wardrobe. Was kind of the first place that I started, and realized that I had a lot of like synthetic fibers in my wardrobe, and realized that like if I'm going to start, in addition to reducing my plastic consumption as a person, what can I do that, you know, helps to make a difference in other ways?
That's great.
And that was one of them.
There we go. No, that's, well, it's amazing, and I'm really glad it's going well. But no, it raises an interesting point, because I think you and I discussed this back in February when we were chatting, is that, you know, I always say that people really need to start to think about that, you know, that $25 slinky polyester dress that they're buying from Forever 21 or something. It's a single-use plastic, you know, that these garments that people are buying and that are made out of synthetic fibers, and, you know, that are going to be worn once or twice, and are really cheap, and are, you know, are bad for the world because they've been made by some downtrodden person who's been, you know, forced into shocking working conditions, and to do the work for a tiny amount of money, made out of materials that are damaging in extracting them from the earth, and in them going back, and just in the fact that it is, you know, it's a single-use throwaway thing that maybe gets worn once or twice, and then, as you say, ends up in the oceans or in landfill, and never biodegrades. We need to think of these things differently, don't we?
Absolutely. And I think that there's many different ways that you can make a difference. It can start with your wardrobe, but, you know, little simple things like bringing your reusable bags to the grocery store, opting out for the straws, recycling what you can in terms of what it is that you buy, and trying to cut out single-use plastics as much as you can throughout your daily consumption is like it's a great starting point. And using, ultimately as consumers, we create the demand, and I think that's something that is very empowering when you spend a bit of time thinking about it, because if we stop buying a certain thing, then these labels and these companies will stop making it ultimately. So if we remember the power that we have as consumers to support brands that are in line with our personal values and what it is that we're trying to achieve and to support, whether it's for the environment or whether it's for humanitarian causes, we have that ability and that power. And I think that once you realize that, and once we all start to sort of act on it, whether it's as a responsible business owner or whether it's what I invest in as a individual, we can all make a difference. And I think that's really cool. And we don't have to wait for a company or a government to change legislation. We can be the change, and it can start with the few dollars that we have in our pockets.
Yeah. Well, someone's just commented, yes, totally stop demand and it'll cut supply. And this is true. And look, I know from my point, I've barely bought anything over the last, whatever it is, 4 or 5 months that I've been stuck at home because, really, well, I probably have a slightly more extensive wardrobe than the average chap. And so I have been looking at that and thinking, do I need another item that's virtually identical to that one that I already have? So yeah, I mean, there's that to consider. But we're seeing so many garment companies, fashion companies. I think the figures for April in the United States, sales of garments were down 79% on April 2019's figures, which I'm conflicted because, it's as someone who loves and supports fashion, I want to see the companies that are producing it do well and survive, and so many of them are kind of crashing at the moment. But by the same token, it is kind of great for the world to see people consuming less and being a little bit more thoughtful. So I don't know.
I think it's all positive change, and it's introspection of people really reevaluating what it is that they're buying and consuming and filling their house with at the end of the day. And I think it's a reset, and it's going to be tough. And I think there's going to be people that survive, and there's going to be brands and businesses that don't. But I think that if we're really truly supporting brands that are doing positive work, and that have control of their supply chains and are able to make those adjustments ethically, those will be the ones that are able to pivot and sort of navigate through these challenging times. But it will be interesting to see, next time this year, who's still out there, and how they've been able to obviously move forward throughout these challenging numbers. It is tough, but I think it's all positive change, and it is this sort of reevaluation of what is it that we ultimately need, and why are we buying it, and why are we investing in these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great stuff to ponder there. Well, Brandy, they're going to cut us off in 1 minute and 26 seconds and counting.
All right.
So it's been a great pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks
so
to everyone.
Happy to be here.
No, it was absolutely my pleasure, Brandy. And look, keep fighting the good fight. You are, approaching things from definitely the right angle. It's a really tough time, but it sounds like you're on the right track. So all the best.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Brandy. Catch up soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Join us again soon. Thank you. Ciao. See you later.